So I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Eugene Dubossarsky. He is the chief data scientist of AlphaZeta, but he wears many hats, being active in the commercial data science space for at least 20 years. He started doing a PhD in neural networks, and he also has a first-class honors in computer science and pure mathematics. He founded the Data Science Sydney meetup, and is very, very active in the space, also in the Sydney User Forum, the Data Visualization meetup, etc. There are many more. He has his own training business, Presciient, that offers courses in data science, machine learning, and other advanced analytic techniques. And he's an advisor on data science on an international digital bank called Bankera, which was one of the world's largest ICOs. Eugene, thank you for being here today. He'll talk about living the dream, becoming a freelance data scientist. Please join me in welcoming Eugene to the stage.
Camera good, general AV good, everybody happy? I think we've got a full house. Give yourselves a big hand for all being here. And there's still more coming. We may run out of chairs. That's a really good problem to have. Thank you all very much for coming to what is becoming a ridiculously frequent meetup. Data Science Sydney is now running every single week. Give yourselves all a big hand again for making Data Science Sydney so wonderful. So, welcome to a presentation where I want to cover two very strongly intertwined topics, one of which is how and why you might want to become a freelance data scientist, and two, about AlphaZeta, which is an organization that is still surprising me with how amazing it is. Mind you, I'm a little bit biased because I was there for the conference in Bali in December and they really pulled all the stops out. So, word to the wise, whatever you do, go to the next AlphaZeta conference. That's all I'm saying. I do want to talk about something that I keep hearing people referring to as living the dream, where people say, oh yeah, but he or she is living the dream, aren't they? Or you, Eugene, you're living the dream, aren't you? And I'm thinking, I haven't really slept that much in the last week. I'm not sure what dreams you're talking about. And we'll get into that. There is the nice problem to have of being too busy, which comes from being independent. But yes, the topic is, what does it mean to be an independent data scientist? Well, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that there are several different models of independence, and that's the first thing you need to be aware of. The obvious one is consulting. Now, consulting, first of all, is but one model of independence, a very important one, and probably the essential one. In other words, whatever else you're going to do, you're probably going to be consulting, at least at first, and at least for a while. And when I say a while, you measure that while in decades. And it's not a bad thing. But it's to be distinguished from you working for a big brand name consulting company as a full-time employee. Sorry, folks, that's not being independent. So being an independent consultant, yes, that is being independent. And that is going to be the main topic of today's conversation, and indeed what AlphaZeta is almost entirely, but not entirely about. AlphaZeta is about lots of interesting things. Another thing which I do quite a bit, which definitely isn't consulting, but is a great celebration of independence, is training and other ways of educating, facilitating, and building communities, and I do a bit of that as well. Some of it for money, some of it costs money. Don't ask me how much I pay for surf every time it runs. I'm a sponsor. It's life. It's okay. Some people do something I have done in my life, and some people do a lot. And I don't know. It's a mixed bag, and it's not my bag, to use an outdated slang term. But if you're making data science products, you're building data science tools, you're creating data science widgets, you're selling bits of data science. That's, I guess, another way to be freelance, and indeed some people are. what I find more exciting is some people achieve their independence by, instead of selling data science software or, trading system solutions or data science dashboards or whatever the heck else, some people go the other way and say, I ain't selling my data science, I'm selling spoons, or I'm selling yogurt, but I'm using data science to sell it. So people open up their online businesses and without too much effort, without having to be a large multinational, people can, particularly with online business, put themselves in a position where they're suddenly using their data science to target customers, to do A/B testing, to do next best action, and growing their business and beating competitors with data science. So data science to sell stuff is a very viable way to become independent as well. You can actually sell the data itself. Data itself is worth money. Indeed, one of my ventures this year is to build a data valuation and data commercialization company, because when people say, I want to get value out of my data, sorry, no, I shouldn't make that much fun of everyone who says it, but the reason I make fun of it is often people don't know what they mean, and often people don't know where to go next, which is fine. That's why they have consultants to turn to, but often they don't even know if they want to get that value from doing some analysis of that data for their own decision making, or they just want to sell that data. So want to help them with that. And selling data products is a perfectly legitimate thing to do. And the last one, which I think is super exciting but absolutely fraught, is something I'm now calling, as of today, gladiatorial data science. Now this is where you're pitched in a life or death struggle, risking enormous amounts of money usually, against other data scientists. And often only the very best in the world survive. And this is things like sports betting, financial trading, and the one where you're only risking your sanity and your time but not your money, which is Kaggle. You're risking your sanity but you learn. It's a bit like one of those horror movies. But those are all the different ways that you can be an independent data scientist, and if you can think of any that I haven't covered, I'm all ears. I'll add it to the list. But the consulting one is probably the most prominent, because just about anybody who's involved in any of the others is going to be consulting, because most of the others, take gladiatorial data science, you can win a lot of money from doing Kaggle if you win, and in every competition there'll be several thousand people who don't win and one who does. The ones who don't win need to eat somehow. Consulting, while you're trying to build a business to sell data products or sell yogurt using data science, or heck, even trying to build a trading business, well, you want money coming in. If you want money coming in as an independent data scientist, the consulting is unavoidable, although I'd like to impress on you the fact that it's actually not that bad. In fact, it's quite wonderful. So let's talk about the benefits first. I want to give you the story, warts and all, and there's a lot to tell you, so we'll see how much I can cover in 40-odd minutes. But I'll talk about the things that I love about being an independent data scientist. And I'll frame it by saying this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I'll also frame it by saying it's something I've tried to do twice unsuccessfully before that. So yes, I'll admit that it's hard, and yes, I'll admit that I haven't had the easiest time of it myself, but got there reasonably in the end. And it's something which is, I think, worth struggling for. So I don't know that this is true of everyone, but for me, it's certainly something that caused me to earn quite a bit less than my colleagues who were happily employed in the big companies, including the big company that I had left, to go off on my own exactly before the start of the global financial crisis and find myself not quite starving, but making just enough money to go, well, I'm not dead yet, and I've got my dignity and freedom, so it's not enough to make me go back and be a salary man, but I'm not really earning much. So there are definitely prices to pay, and I'll cover the prices to pay later. But let's talk about the benefits. And the benefit is, first of all, that you get to own stuff. And it's when I say own, I don't mean you get to own a giant mansion and a swimming pool with an elephant in it, which, well, is achievable for some of you, depending on the animal welfare laws in your state. But you get to own your own ideas, and for some of us that's really important. So things you invent, things you come up with, you own, because sometimes nothing is more dispiriting than thinking, I've actually had a boss talk to me and go, oh yeah, what have you been thinking about, and I share an idea. He goes, right, that's mine now. I've actually had someone say exactly that to me. Now, that didn't exactly motivate me to keep having ideas, if you know what I mean. You certainly own your ideas. The other thing you own is your relationships. I mean, one thing that I found rather odd is this idea that I'm building this network as I was working in a large consulting company with the understanding that were I to leave, I couldn't touch any of those people, at least for a given period of time. And if part of what you're good at is building network, and we'll talk about how, sorry folks, that's not optional. You're going to have to be good at building network. And if you think that's not your thing and it's not achievable because you're an introvert on the autistic spectrum, join the club. It's all of us. You're still going to have to learn to network. And when you've worked, especially when you've worked so hard at it, because it's not your natural gift and it's not the thing you'd rather be doing, you'd rather be building neural networks or whatever, then be told that the social network can be taken away from you and you've worked so hard to build it, that's not nice. Well, you want to own that. You want to own and it's not just client relationships, it's all sorts of relationships that you want to own. You want to be casual about and own and use. And your achievements. You want to be able to brag about your stuff. You don't want to be told, oh yeah, we need to clear that with management before you can get out and brag about this, and oh yeah, well politically it's actually Fred who gets to say that he did this even though you did all the work and all this sort of stuff. Well, if it's your baby and your job, that doesn't happen. So you get to own your ideas, you get to own your relationship, you get to own your achievements, but you know what? Most of you who are going, yeah, this freelance thing sounds kind of cool, hopefully I've made you excited about owning all of those things, but I bet the reason you came here is because you're thinking about the ownership of the most important part of this whole package, yourself. You get to own yourself. You not own your time, your dignity, your choice, whether you act or don't act, and this includes moral decisions, ethical decisions, as well as doing something that you're passionate about, as well as choosing who you work with and on what terms. You get to own yourself. You get to have a sense of dignity. You get to be your own agent. For me, this was the most vital thing of all, and in fact something I just don't compromise on. And so far I haven't had to, thank God. Choosing who you work with is key. What's amazing is that when I talk to freelancers, we never talk about teamwork. We never talk about cohesion, and we never talk about culture. You know why? Because fish don't talk about water. You know who talks about water? I was going to say camels, but I'm not sure that's entirely true. The large companies talk about teamwork because they're generally forcing together people who don't all want to be there half the time, don't really like each other half the time, don't get along half the time, and seem to be infected with this epidemic called politics, which is not a nice word. But freelancers don't seem to have this problem, and groups of freelancers, and they form teams. Freelancers do teamwork, freelancers do cooperate. And then, by the way, first plug for Alpha Zeta. Alpha Zeta is the miraculous combination of brilliant, uncompromising individuals who get together and solve problems together. Okay, and that's contingent on we're working together because we don't mind each other, and hey, we'll work together again. That's the beauty of being independent. So you get to choose who you work with. You also get to do what you're really good at and you enjoy doing. You get to say, look, I was talking to a friend the other day who's really, really, really good at certain aspects of data science, but he is valued for doing something he considers rather menial in software development because that's what the company he's in values. And that seems to be a universal thing. There's something that A, you're good at, and B, you're passionate about. But you can't do that because they want you to work on this. And there may be really inspiring people in your organization, and you'll go and have lunch with them, and you'll go and, hang out with them after hours, and you'll share ideas with them, but you're not allowed to work with them. You have to work with these other people who bring you down and are interested in things other than what gets you, makes you interested. They probably feel the same way about you, by the way. It doesn't mean you're any better than them. Some people want to be together and some people don't, and organizations have a way of putting together people who really don't want to be there together. And the friction between them, that's called politics. Well, actually, that's half of politics. The other half is just completely irrational incentive structures. People completely rationally reacting to the incentives being completely unnatural. But you know what? The incentives for freelancers tend to be a whole lot more organic and natural. And the other thing is, if we don't like it, we don't have to be there. It's rather nice that way. So one beautiful thing about being a freelancer is you get to do what you excel at and what you love. And that doesn't just mean finding really cool people and working with them, and that includes clients, and that includes co-workers, and that includes just people you might volunteer with. A lot of freelancing is actually doing stuff for free, by the way. You get to do a whole lot of stuff for free, and you decide what you want to do for free, what you want to do for money. About half my time is spent not collecting money, I have to tell you that. I'm not being paid here organising Data Science Sydney, and I put money into the R user group, but that's cool, I love it, it's my choice, I can do that. So you can also, as I'll talk later on resourcing, you can also find people to do the stuff you don't want to do, because as they say, one man's meat is another man's poison. Just like you're a freelancer, because you've been brought in that for whatever reason organizations don't know or don't want to do the things you're good at, there are probably a million things that you consider menial, but other people love doing or are willing to do. And it's not that what you do is great and what they do is bad. They probably see what you do as terrible. Most people are horrified by what we data scientists do. Most people are horrified by this idea of thinking about numbers all day. Really. Most people can't believe we do this, but you know, we love it, we do it, great. So when you're a freelancer, you can actually outsource or either negotiate away or hire away the stuff you don't want to do. And life becomes easier, as opposed to in very large companies where, well, sorry, you're a PhD level data scientist and you're really good at building complex video processing models with deep neural nets. That's great, but what we really want you to do now is to download data from this enterprise Oracle system. Oh, you don't know how to do that? What have they taught you at university? I thought you were a data guy. Don't data guys know this stuff? So you're a bad data guy, and okay, your job is to get data out of this system, then get data out of this system. Oh, you don't want to get data out of these systems? And then they tell you how data science has failed in our organization. Because someone who's been hired for that job, it's really easy to hire them, but for whatever political reason, that department is not allowed to hire data engineers because the other silo has data engineers. So there's all these weird restrictions. And in the end, people can't be supported properly. But if you're a freelancer, you can. And you can spend time doing what you love and surround yourself with people who support you, who inspire you, who energize you. And the other cool thing is you can do the same for them. Actually, when you routinely get a chance to bring out the best in the people around you, it's a nice feeling. It goes around. So I find that all of these things are the benefits of being independent and part of the natural organic culture of independent people. So if I get together with a friend of mine who's also a very seasoned independent data scientist, and we're not doing any business together or anything, but there's just this wonderful synergy, there's just this wonderful understanding, and there's just, yeah, it's a different sort of energy. Another key benefit is you actually get to de-risk your life, because I remember having a job, and my view of a job is, apart from everything I've just discussed, for me a job is an all or nothing thing. While you're in the job, this is your whole life. You go to the job every day, you turn up, you do the job thing, you pretend to do the job thing, by the way. And then you go home and then you do the job thing again. And that's all fine until the company goes under. And that's happened to me. Or let's face it, I was useless. There was one job I got fired from because I was just crap. There was one job I lost because there was economic collapse. Okay, that wasn't my fault. You know, stuff happened. But the point is, you know, your whole world collapses. I had a job, now I don't have a job. What's worse, and here's something I do see, and I used to ask people to put their hands up if they're in this position. I've realized it's completely embarrassing. Put up your silent hand. Don't put up your hand, but put up the hand in your mind if you've been in the following position. Fantastic data science job. fantastic team, because there's this rare visionary team leader who gets it, is getting political cut through, is recognized by management, has massive mandate, and is building a fantastic team. By the way, I've heard this story a million times, and there are people I'm looking at now who've been through this. You know who you are. They're smiling at me guiltily. It's all wonderful, and then that person leaves. The wonderful person leaves, and the whole thing collapses. And it happens again and again and again. What am I getting at? You don't need to be fired for your whole world to collapse. You just need the restructure from hell to happen. And you know, restructure is not a word in my life. Restructure is something I hear clients say. And by the way, when I hear clients talking about, give me a long story about restructure, here's what I'm hearing. Blah, 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 you're not going to make any money from me this quarter, blah, blah, blah. That's all I hear. But for them, their whole world got turned upside down. So you're talking about a situation when you're independent where you're no longer hung up on any one person or any one company or any one entity that has the power of life and death over you. You might have a mortgage, you might have kids. I've got both. And you don't want to be in a situation where suddenly all your income goes away. The beauty of being an independent is you can diversify. You can have lots of clients. You can have lots of channels where each channel provides you lots of clients. We'll talk about channels. Channels are more important than clients. And of course, you might be doing some of this other stuff. In fact, if you're a very passionate data scientist, you will try to be doing at least one of building products or selling things using data science or doing some of that gladiatorial stuff, hopefully quite a bit of it, running courses. You'll be trying other things. You'll be an entrepreneur. You'll be, I don't know, starting tech startups and doing ICOs or launching your own cryptocurrency. You'll be doing stuff as well as finding different sources of income. So this is a key benefit, the diversification. And you get to exploit synergies. You get to say, hey, these clients or these friends or these people can work really well together and I can add value this way. You can see opportunities and create value out of nothing just by having conversations with people, you know, just over pizzas and beer. And you get to keep benefiting from those synergies ongoing. It's not contingent on you being employed in this one place. So you're free to succeed. You don't have people tying your hands. You don't have people that are going to shoot you down if you succeed, or if you succeed in a particular way, or if you don't acknowledge people that don't deserve to be acknowledged. You're also free to fail. No one's going to beat you up. No one's going to fire you. No one's going to demote you. No one's going to restructure you if you fail. You're free to brag. You can say, I did this really cool thing. Okay, look, with some clients, they're pretty secretive. Clients can be secretive, but that's on a per client basis and it's your choice. And you know it up front. But the point is, apart from the client, there's no one in your way from saying, look at the cool thing I did. And networking and bragging are those two skills we, as Prescient data science types, need to get better at. And you're free to associate. You're free to have whatever friends you want. You can talk to people. You're not restricted from talking to people in competitor companies. You're not restricted to talking. Actually, interestingly, I won't go on about real competition, but yeah, restriction from talking to competitors, I wish there was more of it. It means that a company is serious about competitors. But when I was in a Big Four consulting firm, there was a host of people I wasn't allowed to talk to for weird things like audit conflicts and other sorts of conflicts. And oddly enough, I wasn't allowed to talk to people because they were clients of other parts of the company. All sorts of horrible stuff. When I'm free, I can talk to anyone I like. And the best part of all for a data scientist or an entrepreneur, I was really surprised by this one. As a freelance data scientist, I have at my fingertips more technical and human firepower than most people I know in corporates. I am free to use as much cloud as I want on any cloud platform whenever I like. I am free to use any open source tool I like. This already nullifies 80% of the organizations you folks work for. I have more access to high-end data science firepower than most people in this room, but just by virtue of not being in a large company. In a large company, what do you get in exchange? In exchange, you have access to maybe a certain kind of enterprise system that you're locked into, and people often hate. Okay, I don't have a high-end big-name enterprise system, and I don't want it, because the pros use open source stuff. So any open source and as much cloud as I can eat. But here's the best part. What I find most remarkable in large organizations, they seem to be large, right? And they seem to be full of people and they're full of money. But I keep talking to people who cannot get the help they need. I keep talking to people who say, yeah, we need this done or we need this done, but we can't hire someone to do it. And by the way, I'll point out any number of useless people either doing nothing or actively destroying value by making trouble and eating up money. But bureaucracy says, no, we can't hire people to solve this problem here. What amazes me, and I'm going to have a completely different talk about this later, is that as an independent, I am free whenever I want, and I'm doing this right now, to hire people, let's face it, incredibly cheaply. And they're really talented people from anywhere in the world using online sites to do relatively menial technical stuff. So I can focus on the high-end data science. And I see a lot of independent data scientists doing the same thing. I'm amazed by this. I can grow a team and just get rid of it any time I like. If I want someone more serious, if I want some serious actual consultants with a bit of panache, with a bit of experience, people I trust, I've got AlphaZetta. I can grab an AlphaZetta team from anywhere in the world. I can grab a ready-made team that's already well established and networked, or I can grab a few people now that I've met AlphaZetta people from all over the world, and I can form a team there and then. I can do this, and I don't need to be a millionaire to do this either. And the other thing is, if I get a big enough project, the client pays. So I'm not talking about something for which you need to be a millionaire. But the point is, the kind of flexibility, the kind of electronic and human firepower, and it's disposable firepower. You don't have to pay for it when you're using it through cloud and through either the low-end stuff like Upwork for menial tasks and high-end consulting stuff like only AlphaZetta really provides in our industry. So much is achievable. So the other great one, and this is one that we really saw in action in Bali, is you can work from anywhere, anytime. You really can be a digital nomad. So I spent my time being a digital nomad around Southeast Asia, trying quite unsuccessfully to build a training business in Singapore and realizing they just don't want to pay the same amount for training as Australians. Well, fine, I do my training in Australia. But I had a great time, and there's nothing like sitting around in a cafe in Chiang Mai with some other digital nomads planning to take over the world and possibly doing it. Now, that's all the good news. Let's talk about some of the bad news. Let's talk about the risks and the challenges. The truth is that if you're an independent data scientist, especially if you're starting out, for me, I had 2 false starts. And those false starts, I learned a lot, but I earned nothing. Or I went backwards when I was a financial trader the first time. That was bad. So, yeah, you really need to be ready for uncertainty and hardship. Now, that is just, that's just a bit of, it's a character thing. And it's, you just need to go through it. You just need to be, you need to have a bit of a war chest. Ideally, if you're deciding to go independent, whenever people say to me, hey, how do I go independent? My advice is never quit your job now and go independent. My advice is always see if you can keep your job. See if you can think of every revenue source you've got as a client. Your current job is a client. You don't want to get rid of it, you just want to devolve it. You want to go part-time. You might want to take a holiday and try something else. You want to keep all your assets, all your clients, including the job you have now. And that's something I did. When I was leaving the Big Four I was in, I went part-time. At first I just went part-time, I went casual, so I could do other things. The second thing is, I would not jump ship unless you had 3 sizable clients that you've worked several gigs with already, each of them, and you had a good expectation that they'll still be there. And also you had at least 1 good channel to provide you with more clients. So another good thing about something like AlphaZetta is it's a channel. AlphaZetta finds work for you. You want a few channels like this behind you, and you want clients that are willing to pay you. Otherwise, life is tough. No more salary, no more check every week. This is a big thing. Imagine having no check every week. Also, no one's got your back. You have no idea how much you take for granted working in a company. There's no you're doing the admin, you're doing the taxes. If things go wrong, like if there's trouble, you're dealing with the legal issues, you're dealing with the insurance issues. There's all sorts of stuff, and it's now on you. So there's suddenly incredibly heavy responsibility. There's no infrastructure other than what you build. Oh, and by the way, there's an upside to this. You get to build whatever infrastructure you want. You get to build whatever support structure you want. It takes a while, but you can build better mechanisms, I would say, than in the end what you might have in a big company. Another really big problem is, for many of us, we need people to motivate us. We need to be in an environment of people that we see are working on the one hand, so we want to work too, and on the other hand that are there to have chats with and have coffee with and have A lot of meetings are pointless, let's be honest. A lot of meetings are completely pointless except as motivation exercises. But that alone makes them useful. And when you're working alone, I'm telling you now, working at home with your two-year-old running around saying, play with me, is not very conducive to long-term productivity. I know this because this is where I am right now. I need an office, I really do. So if you're going independent, go slowly and have lots of gigs to go to. Now, you need to be, personality-wise, a very different person to what I see in a lot of large organizations. Something that probably matters less is your political skills, suddenly, but something that matters more is your ability to tolerate scarcity, uncertainty, change, and disappointment. Character matters for a lot, and your political skills need to be replaced by incredibly gregarious social skills. So let's talk about the sort of skills you need. You actually need to be good at data science and analytics. You actually need to be good enough to be someone people will reliably hire because they don't have that skill in-house. So the technical skill goes without saying. The technical skill and the experience to back it up. But you also need business acumen. You really need to understand how those technical skills give people something that they need. You need to understand how value works in people's minds. And you need the right interpersonal skills. Yes, you need sales skills. Yes, you need networking skills. Yes, you need communication skills. You need to be able to brag. You need to be able to elevate a pitch to everyone you meet. In a sense, you're free. But in another sense, you're now a hunter and you're always hunting. Now, if you find that demeaning or you find that unpleasant, well, you probably don't want to be independent, which is fine. But if you want to be independent, you need to take a joy in always telling the world what a wonderful offering you have and how lucky they would be for you to work for them. You need to get into that rhythm. You need to be networking. You need to be meeting people, particularly people who aren't other data scientists. This event is great, but the most valuable network connections you have are the ones outside of your comfort zone, outside of your industry, and often outside of your sort of level. And I don't just mean people much more senior than you. Putting your ego aside and being interested in everyone, no matter how junior, no matter how young, no matter how low status, having a curiosity and a regard for everyone pays enormously. And being an independent fosters that natural interest in people. You need to be tolerating and welcoming change and uncertainty. So ideally, you need to be able to weather change and uncertainty. Well, at minimum, you need to weather change and uncertainty, but ideally, it's meant to be making you wake up in the morning. You want to be the sort of person who is excited by it, not just tolerates it. You need to be always learning, and you need to be always working. Now, when you're in the rhythm of it, when you've got the survival stuff out of the way, you want channel partners. You don't just want clients. Clients are great, don't get me wrong. You want to have, but clients come and go. No client lasts. Yes, there are exceptions, but even though for some people some clients are fantastic, really good rule of thumb is for 80% of us, 80% of the client time, 90% of the time, clients come and go. But what you want is you want to find people who are desperate to find people like you to give consulting work to. And those people exist. Now, that's as distinct from, you know, you meet someone and go, we want to partner with you. You're in the consulting business, we're in the X business. And what they mean by we want to partner with you is they mean we want you to find business for us. Okay, fine, if you want to be a business developer for someone in the spoon industry, but the best the best channels are not the ones who are looking for you to do business development for them. The best channels are like large software companies that just want to build a better ecosystem of use of their software, of maturity of data science in general, so that their software grows along with the rest of the industry. Those are fantastic partners to have, because all they want to do is feed you work. Diversify. Have as many irons in your fire as possible. Well, I'm giving you advice on what I do. Other people will go, be niche and specialize, but I'm not a be niche and specialized guy. Data science as a whole is niche enough for me. Find synergies. Find unexpected things that when they go well together, suddenly achieve big things. And then you can exploit those synergies. And absolutely offload the things you don't like doing or don't do well. There will be any number of people who will be grateful to have a go at that as an entry into data science, as just a source of income, as just the thing that they enjoy doing. Different people enjoy different things. As you get better, as you get more prominent, people will just want to work with you just to get to know you, just to find out what it is that you do, just to learn. Learning is a huge benefit. Absolutely reach out beyond your area of interest, commercial reach and pay grade. I've already said that. Everyone and everything is interesting. Finding what's interesting in everyone and everything is actually, I think, part of the key to consultant and independent data scientist success, independent anything success. And this is where the nicest surprises come from. Learn to brag. Learn to tell everyone about how wonderful you are and how lucky they would be to have you working for them. Learn to tell people about how excited you are about the things you're doing. Share your genuine excitement. Be excited about things, do them for free, and share your excitement with others. And learn. Don't stop learning. Don't stop learning the technical stuff. Don't stop learning the ephemeral technical stuff that changes every year, like programming languages or whichever algorithms in fashion. Absolutely learn the fundamental stuff. Get better at your maths. Get better at your stats. Get better at your strategy. Get better at your history, at your political theory. All these things matter as well when you're independent. And leverage. Use Upwork.com or Amazon Turk for the low-level menial things. And Alpha Zeta is just a fantastic thing as a source of leverage. It's also a fantastic thing as a source of work, but I'm going to leave it to Tony to tell you some more about the many ways in which Alpha Zeta is fantastic. And now I welcome your questions.
Wonderful. Any questions for Eugene?
Well, the first question is, you mentioned that you had a go at least 2 times. The first, when you tried to start to work as a freelancer, and both the first 2 times things didn't pan out too well. So could you perhaps tell us what were your mistakes, or what was that you would have to do better to succeed there?
Do I really have to go there? It's painful memories. Look, I think I was a very different person then. I would not recognize the person I was. I say this because I'm surprised by how I hear people describe me now, and I'm not saying this to brag, and I'm not saying this to, to put tickets on myself. It's just that the way I was and the way I perceived myself, I was a very geeky, very introvert. Anne remembers me. Anne, you tell him what I was like. You tell him what I was like. Go on. Here, Anne will tell you why I couldn't succeed for like 10 years. Go on.
He was obviously extremely intelligent and very talented.
That wasn't the part I was looking for. Give him the truth.
Still needed to learn a bit about the ways of the world. So he expected people to appreciate what he had to offer, but they didn't get it. So he had to learn to communicate what he had to offer.
Yeah, well, it was, successful business lady here was doing amazing things in St. George with Tony, as I found out. Small world. And, I really looked up to Anne because, Anne, I remember I was having lunch with Anne in one of those little grassed areas just off York Street, where I was in my very first commercial job after my postdoc. So of the 20 years commercial data science experience, this was like year 2 or something. And Anne was saying, Eugene, you need to understand that people in the business world aren't as smart as the people you're used to talking to. You need to talk to them in a different way. I was fresh out of uni. I'd done a few consulting gigs, and I'd done a bit of an internship in a company, so that was like a year and a half of experience. But after my PhD, I found myself in a rather unhappy work situation where I wasn't delivering. I was doing the things that I thought were right, the things that were interesting. I wasn't doing exactly this, but I was doing the equivalent of saying, yeah, but I want to get less mean squared error because the most important thing in life is getting less mean squared error. And I'm not happy because you're asking me to do plots of what the clients asked for, but I want to do neural nets. My PhD's in neural nets. Why aren't I doing neural nets? Neural nets are the cool thing. I want to do neural nets. I was that guy, okay? So you want to know why I failed? Because I was that guy. And all the things Anne was too polite to say. Hey.
Something to look forward to.
Okay, thank you for the interesting talk. I'm kind of curious, at the end you said study your politics and study your history. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't mean your personal politics and you can't, that's probably worth, I think that being a student of things like philosophy, politics and history makes you more successful in business. Controversial idea perhaps, but I think if you're on your own, in particular you're building your own business, you're a strategist. You may or may not know it, and you're either an agent acting strategically or you're the lunch of someone who is an agent acting strategically. So rule number 1 is don't be lunch, and rule number 2 is have lunch. I don't mean have someone else for lunch, but you don't have to be nasty, you don't have to... No, you can be ethical and you can get by in the world without doing bad things to people, but I will tell you that the most successful people out there are successful partly because they have no qualms about doing bad things to people. And when you have no plan, there will automatically be people who will take advantage of the fact that you have no plan. So it's helpful to understand complex social situations and things like history and political science and the classics like Machiavelli and Sun Tzu. And oddly enough, something that's been written relatively recently, and I'll only share with you if you email me, these things can give you insight into how organizations work, what motivates people, and how to survive and thrive. Machiavelli's The Prince is a damn good thing to read, and I don't think it'll turn you into a bad person either.
Hello, great talk. Two questions. First question is the average length of one of your independent engagements, so maybe like min, max, and median. And the second question is not every independent engagement will necessarily work out perfectly, so can you maybe mention some examples or ways where an engagement has not gone to plan or soured?
Oh, good God. Well, I told you there was this one organisation I just got fired from. That wasn't an engagement, that was a gig. They soured for all sorts of things. One soured very recently when it became very clear that the management that was very excited about data science and analytics was excited because they needed to get certain numbers out to their head office to show how well they're going. And of course, the purpose of BI is to produce the numbers that say what they want them to say, right? and I think this is another point. At one point, I'm going to do a talk about the kinds of people that you meet. And I think it's important to distinguish between, like, of the many pathological people you meet, there are pathological people who actually want you to lie. Like, they know they want you to lie, and they want you to lie. And those are divided into the kind that think they know it's a bad thing to ask you to do, and they're going to try to coerce you to do it anyway, by bribe or coerce you. And the kind who think, yeah, it's a little thing, everyone does it, who cares? But there's a third kind, and these are really scary. There's a third kind of person who don't even know there's such a thing as truth. That's a really weird thing to say, isn't it? But there are people who are instinctively very aware of status, who's important, who's not important, who's powerful, who's not powerful, but for whom the last 3,000 years of philosophy have just gone by. They actually, it's not that they actively disbelieve truth, they've never believed the notion of truth. And their relationship with data science is, well, data science produces numbers, and numbers can say anything. They actually believe that. Watch out for those people and ascertain very quickly if you're working for one. It's not entirely obvious. I haven't answered your question directly, Ben, but I've answered it obliquely.
But also the first one, the min-max median.
Min-max median. Why does everyone always also ask for the mode? You didn't. The mode's ill-defined, people. It depends on the bandwidth of your kernel density estimator. Look, most gigs don't last more than a few months, but some relationships last for years. So I seldom do a gig that goes for as long as a year, but I think my longest running client at the moment, I think we're approaching 2 years now. But I haven't been consulting very heavily at all. So I'm just getting back into the consulting thing now. So I've been focused on training. Fabian. Oh, I thought Fabian.
So in regards to the aspect where you're talking about where people lying and whatnot, and wanting you to lie, the aspect I was wondering about is a lot of people think they want something in data science, but what they think they want and what you know they want are two different things. How do you go through filtering that on?
Very easily. By reputation. Everybody knows that I'm the scary guy who is always going on about how he doesn't want to deal with stupid clients who don't know what they want. No, seriously. Or, by the way, the sort of client who says, look, I honestly don't know what I want, that's not a stupid client. Someone who honestly admits they don't know what they want, that's a great client. And I love helping those people. They say, I want, like, for me, I'll tell you what a starting point is. They go, we want to get value out of our data. We want to turn data into value. And I go, so if you opened a computer shop in if you were wanting to get into computers in 1983, did you want to computerize your business so your clerical staff use computers instead of paper and pen? Or did you want to open a computer shop? How do you want to achieve value from computers in 1983? Because your question of achieve value from data is, do you want to sell data or analysis products, or do you want to use data to make decisions? Haven't really thought about it that way, but that's a good client. Okay. The other kind of client, by the way, see, it's not that they don't know what they want. It goes in hand with something similar to not believing in truth. They don't care what they want. They want to be associated with buzzwords. So there is the sort of client who doesn't know where to start. That's a good client. That's a fair place to be. There's also the sort of client who goes, we need to get into AI. There was a great cartoon. It goes, one executive says, we need to get into the AI, and the other one says, most people don't know what they mean when they say AI. Also blockchain. Okay. I find those get filtered out, because what I say to those guys is, I'm super expensive. Now, if I'm super expensive, if all you want to do is tick the box that says AI, there are much cheaper ways to tick that box than me. But if you actually want to get to the bottom of what the hell is this stuff, including possibly being told it's not what you want to be doing right now, because I tell a lot of people that, you're not ready for it, this isn't the important thing for you, just because it's a buzzword doesn't mean you need it, they'll actually pay top dollar for that, some of them.
Thank you for your talk and your time investment into this meetup. My question is related to the market for freelance data scientists. What is your feeling for the market of the industry at the moment? Is there a lot of demand for freelance, for independent data scientists? And if there's not, is it easy to convince a company to onboard an independent guy rather than hiring a permanent guy?
I'm crap at convincing companies to do anything. I'm amazed by the people who are good at it or say they're good at it. I have never been able to convince a company to do anything in my life. Okay, it's not entirely true. I can maybe nudge them, but the last thing I want to do is to convince a company that they need a data scientist. I only want to talk to them because they're already convinced they need a data scientist, but here's the point. I only want to deal with the ones who are convinced they need a good data scientist and have already had enough bad experience with the bad ones. There's definitely a market for good data scientists. There's definitely a market for people who have the technical skills and the business skills and the communication skills. Those are a rarity. And the clients you want are not the clients you have to convince. Clients you want are the ones who have a need already. One more, and then we'll go to Tony.
I just wanted to ask you, when you started out, how did you navigate pitching, like pricing the value that you bring to a company as the fact that you're the one that's getting paid?
Very badly. Awfully. You start by asking for far too little. You start by asking for nothing. You start by doing pilot projects. Then you start for asking for way too little, and then you realize people don't want to pay you because the sort of people who want to tick buzzwords are also the sort of people who want to spend budget, because spending budget makes them look good. So you realize you put your prices up because that gives them an excuse to spend budget, and then everybody's happy. It's terrible but true. Basically suck it and see. Look folks, I'm going to be around. I'm going to be around in the social section, but I'm cutting into Tony's presentation, so thank you very much. And over to Fabian.